All right, this is the 100-120 class. We're going to do some two-voice practice. This is some two-voice from, this is a gang expert. All right, beginning with a question for the record. Sir, can you identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Detective John Farrell from the Fairfax County Police Department.
And what are your duties?
I'm currently assigned to the Northern Virginia Gang Task Force.
And how long have you been assigned there?
Since March of 2005.
And how long have you been a police officer?
Since January of 2000.
And how much have you been working with gang activity issues and working on gang cases, gang-related cases since you've been a police officer?
Yes, I have.
What kind of training have you received?
I've received the basic law enforcement training through Fairfax County. I've also received advanced investigator training. I've been to the basic gangs school and various gang conferences.
Okay. And have you ever taught gang training to other law enforcement officers?
Yes, I have.
And what kind of training has that been and where at?
I taught at the Fairfax County Academy for Patrol Officers.
Okay. And how many investigations would you say you've been involved in since you've been a law enforcement officer that involved separate investigations involving gang activity?
I would estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 investigations.
Okay. And about how much of your activity that you're involved in involves MS-13?
Reference to gang investigations. I would say about 90% of my investigations involve MS-13.
Okay, sir. During the course of your investigation, in some of these 100 or so investigations involving MS-13 that you involved yourself, that you were involved in, was one of these Brenda Paz case?
Yes, it was.
And can you tell us just very briefly what that case was about?
Brenda Paz was an informant for local law enforcement and the federal government, and she was direct John Farrell, murdered by MS-13.
Okay, and was she a witness against certain MS-13 members?
Yes, she was a witness against Dennis Rivera, who was a member of MS-13.
And in that underlying case, what was he charged with?
He was charged with a homicide that occurred on Dangerfield Island.
Okay, and that was federal property up in Alexandria?
Yes, sir, it was.
And so it was a federal case?
Yes, it was.
And Ms. Paz then was, I believe you said, a witness in the federal case?
Yes, she was.
And she was murdered?
Yes, she was.
And she was murdered while a cooperating witness?
Yes, she was.
And you were involved in the investigation of her murder?
To a limited extent, yes, I was.
And certain individuals were prosecuted for that?
Yes, they were.
Prosecuted in federal district court in the Eastern District of Virginia?
Yes, they were.
And were certain individuals convicted for that?
Yes, there were convictions.
Who was convicted?
One of the individuals was Cisneros, and the second individual was Oscar Grand.
Okay. Judge, I'm going to give you a copy of what's been marked Commonwealth's Exhibit number 14. And can you identify what those are, please?
Yes. This is the indictment reference the Brenda Fax homicide.
Okay. And attached to the back, what do you see?
They appear to be the certified convictions on Oscar Grand and Ishmael Cisneros.
And these were MS-13 cases involving Brenda Paz, the murder victim, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, were the two individuals you testified to, Grande and Cisneros, were they MS-13 members?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Now, sir, I also have here something that's been marked Commonwealth's Exhibit 15, and it's a group exhibit. I'd like you to just go through, and I'll go through that with you. We can briefly tell me if these are the individuals, these are the conviction orders from Fairfax County Court, and I'd like for you to tell us, to identify the defendant, tell us if this was a conviction resulting from an MS-13 related crime, or, I'm sorry, if these defendants were MS-13 and if the crime involved related to gang activity in Northern Virginia.
Reference the certified conviction of Oscar Omar Ramos Hernandez. He was convicted of capital murder, abduction, and rape. This was the Diana Garcia case that occurred in 2001. Sorry.
She was the victim?
Yes, sir. She was.
Okay. And basically, what did that involve?
Oscar Hernandez and Omar Guzman.
Back on the record.
Sorry. Should I go?
Mhm.
Oscar Hernandez and Omar Guzman, which is a second certified conviction in this pile, and a third subject who was not been arrested at this point, observed Ms. Garcia one of the subjects believed that she was a chavala, which means a member of a rival gang member. Based on that information, a decision was made to take action against her. She was dragged off the road behind an apartment complex where she was raped and murdered by being struck in the back of the head.
Okay. And that was by Oscar Hernandez and Omar Guzman?
Yes, sir.
Both MS-13 members?
Yes.
And simply because she was a member of a rival gang?
They believed her to be.
Believed her to be a member of a rival gang?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can we look at, let's see, we have Mr. Melendez, Jose Cruz Melendez.
Yes, sir. That was.
Is that an MS-13? Was Mr. Jose Cruz Melendez an MS-13 major member?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And what did that attack involve?
This was a case involving a second member was also convicted. I don't see the conviction here. Cristobal Madrono. This was a machete attack on Edsel Road where a rival gang member had initially pursued some members of MS-13 to where they were having a party on foot. The members ran out and they captured the other gang member and they mutilated his hands with a machete.
Okay. And what gang was the other person from?
Southside Locos.
Okay. Okay. Any reason for that came out of that investigation and that trial, other than the fact that this was a rival gang member which is what prompted the attack.
He was a rival gang member that had initiated, according to the defendants, initiated the problem by chasing them.
Cesar Rodriguez, that's in there also. Is that an MS-13 member?
Yes,
Convicted of criminal street gang participation?
yes.
And just very briefly, what did that involve, sir?
That was a machete also. A machete cutting on a subject coming out of a practice for a Sweet 15 birthday party. They were having a practice for a dance, and Mr. Hernandez assaulted one of the individuals after throwing up MS-13 gang hand signs.
Okay. And sir, let me just, so we can maybe move this along. I'm going to read out the rest of the names here. Wilbur Rivera, Joaquin Carballo Castro, Garzad Omar Diaz Hernandez, Cristobal Zelaya Medrano, Cesar Jonathan Rodriguez, Joaquin Carballo Castro, MS-13 members, case convictions,
Yes.
and orders that you've provided our office in preparation for...
The only cases I'm not familiar with are the Castro and the Hernandez cases. I don't know the particulars on those, but I do know those two subjects to be gang members. And the other cases I'm familiar with, either having assisted in the investigation or having spoken with an officer investigating those cases.
Thank you, sir.
Those are all MS-13 gang members? Yes, sir.
Did you come across during your investigations an individual by the MS-13 nickname of Kryman?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what do you know his real name to be?
Luis Serrano Gutierrez.
And is that the Luis Serrano Gutierrez right over there at council, sitting next to council,
Yes, sir, it is.
known to you as Kryman?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about the conversation you had with him concerning, well, did he make statements to you at some point in time about Brenda Paz?
Yes, he did.
And give us a time frame for when the statements were made and
This was in the course of this investigation.
the investigation we're here for today.
Yes, sir.
And what did he say to you about the Brenda Paz killing?
He indicated that members of his clique had been involved in that homicide, and the subsequent prosecution had eliminated many members of his clique.
So they were practically wiped out because of the aftermath of having killed Brenda Paz.
Yes,
And what clique was that?
that was CLS, which stands for Centrales Locos de Salvatrucha.
Do you recall when you became actively involved in the investigation of the death of Ms. Angeles?
I believe it was within a week of when her body was found.
So prior to that time, had you conducted any investigation of the NLS clique of MS-13?
I had conducted investigations dealing with members of that clique. However, I wasn't actively investigating NLS for any specific reason at that time.
So did you have intelligence as to structure or hierarchy within the NLS clique?
As an investigative body, we did. Personally, I can't speak to what the structure of NLS was prior to this investigation.
So during the course of this investigation, did you receive information about the hierarchy?
Yes. At that point, I began to familiarize myself more with that clique and the hierarchy.
Did you get that information from other police officers, or what was your source?
In the course of the investigation, I received information from other police officers who had been more actively investigating NLS for crimes, and also from subjects involved in the case, defendants today.
Can you identify the officers that you got that information from?
One of the officers I spoke with was Detective Storm.
And so who else would have provided you with information about the hierarchy of NLS?
There were other detectives from the Fairfax Gang Unit that had dealt with NLS more actively than I had. Primarily, I remember Detective Storm. I can't be sure who else I had spoken to reference the hierarchy.
Did any gang member, alleged gang member, give you information about the hierarchy within NLS?
Yes, Mr. Portillo Chicos spoke to me about NLS.
And when was it you spoke to Mr. Portillo Chicos?
That was the day after his arrest.
And where did that interview take place?
At the Rappahannock Regional Detention Center.
Do you record that statement?
Yes, it was recorded.
Does the Commonwealth have a copy of that?
Yes. I don't know if the Commonwealth does. Detective McDermott was provided a copy of that statement.
So you provided a copy to Detective McDermott?
Yes, sir.
And so who was present for that interview?
Myself and Detective Claudia Sa from the Gang Task Force.
And did you take statements from any of the other co-defendants?
Reference the hierarchy or?
Well, reference this investigation.
In the course of the investigation, I spoke with Mr. Del Cid, and I also spoke with Mr. Serrano Gutierrez, and also I had conversations with Mr. Perez, also that was assisting Detective McDermott as a translator.
And so were your interviews with Mr. Del Cid and Mr. Gutierrez recorded?
The interview, I believe. I'm not sure if those interviews were recorded. They weren't conducted at a Fairfax County facility, so I'm not sure what technology was employed for those interviews. I do believe that those interviews were recorded, though.
And does that include then your interviews with Mr. Perez?
Once again, I believe that that interview was recorded, but I'm not certain. And with the interview with Mr. Perez, my role was as a translator, so I wasn't responsible for setting up interview equipment or for...
Thank you. All right, this is more two-voice practice. We will do at 120 words per minute. Beginning with a question for the record. Your name, sir.
Frank Grayson.
Your occupation.
I'm with the North Carolina Wildlife.
Mr. Grayson, where do you live?
I live approximately 12 miles west of Hickory on Highway 34 near Salem Crossroads.
Do you live there with your wife?
And one boy.
Were you living there on the 25th of March of this year?
Yes.
Sir, did anything unusual occur at your home that day?
Yes, sir. As I approached my home at approximately 12:30 p.m., I pulled in the driveway. I spotted this white van that was backed up in my carport. I knew then that there was something wrong, so I called for some assistance to come and meet me. After I got confirmation that the assistance was coming, I stepped out of my car and I heard my glass door open in the basement. At that time, I pulled my gun and stepped over toward my brick fence. I spotted this black fellow coming up beside the wall with a pistol in his hand. He had the pistol kind of in this position. I yelled at him to drop the pistol. He still held it in that position. In another second, I yelled at him again to drop the pistol. He still held it there for another 2 or 3 seconds, and then he dropped it. At that time, I made him put his hands on his head and walked him up to the bank towards me. I tried to keep him between me and the carport because I kind of suspected there was another fellow in my house. A passerby saw me marching him back to my car, and he stopped and wanted to know if I needed any help. I said, if you don't mind, I would like for you to put the handcuffs on him because I'm afraid there is somebody else in my house. So he did.
Is that person that you said had the pistol, you saw him there at your house? Is he in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Where is he?
Right over there.
Is he the one you put the handcuffs on?
Yes, sir. That's the fellow we put the handcuffs on.
Did you ask him at the time, was there anybody else in the house?
Yes, sir, I did.
What did he tell you?
He told me there wasn't nobody else in the house, that he was the only one that broke in my house.
What did you do then?
At that time, after I got the handcuffs on him, I asked him, was there anybody else in the house? And he swore to God that there wasn't nobody else in the house.
Did you look at the pistol?
After a few seconds went by, I went and picked up the pistol. I looked at the pistol, and it was my pistol that he had come out of the house with. I asked him, I said, where did you get this pistol? He said, I got it out of your house. I looked on it and it said NCWCRD, which is North Carolina Wildlife Resource Department.
What kind of pistol was it?
It was a Smith & Wesson 38.
Was it loaded?
Yes, sir.
Where did you keep the pistol in your house?
I kept it in my bedroom in my chest of drawers.
Did any assistants arrive?
Yes, sir. Deputy Saylor arrived, and then 3 of my fellows arrived, Officer Lockley, Keith Fingerhouse, and Gary Dodson.
Did you look at the van before you went in the house?
Yes, sir, I did.
What was in the van?
It was just stacks of articles that had come out of my house, just piled up in the van.
What kind of stuff?
Television, stereos, guns, shotguns, typewriter, adding machine. It was a list of stuff. I don't know how many items it was in there. I did take an inventory of the stuff that came out of the house.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
It's a list of articles that came out of my house that were already in the van.
Already in the van?
Yes, sir.
Except for the pistol?
Except for the pistol. Yes, sir.
Did you make this list out?
Yes, sir.
Now I notice that you have a price on the items. Whose writing is that?
This is my wife's writing. The price down here.
Who made the estimate of the value of this property?
Me and my wife.
Did you make an estimate yourself?
We both did. Yes, sir.
As to what items did you place the value on, sir?
The television was one thing.
What did you put on it?
I believe it was $500.
What other items did you place a value on?
You mean personally?
Yes, sir, you personally.
My shotgun?
How much on that?
It was $150.
What kind of shotgun?
Winchester, the .22 rifle.
How much did you put on that?
$50. A Smith & Wesson pistol.
How much did you put on that?
$75. I believe is what it was.
Is your wife available for a witness?
No, sir, she's not.
Where is she?
She's working
Where?
at the sewing room, Lincolnton Manufacturing Sewing Room in Lincolnton.
We can get her here, can't we?
Yes, sir.
What condition was your television in?
2 legs were broken off of it, and it was scratched up real bad. Once they moved it back in the house, it would not play.
What condition was it in when it was in the house?
It was in good condition.
Were the legs busted up on it?
No, sir, and no scratches.
When you looked at it in the van, what condition was it in?
The 2 legs were broken off it. It was scratched up real bad.
Where, if any place, did you take this defendant?
After Deputy Saylor got there, Deputy Saylor read him his rights. We searched the house. Then he was transported to jail by Deputy Saylor.
Did you go up to the jail?
Later, yes, sir.
Right, this is more practice at 120 words per minute for the record. Mrs. Mason, I believe that you are the respondent in this cause. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You are the former wife of James Trenton Mason,
Yes, sir.
and you were divorced from, you obtained a divorce from him in 1969.
Yes, sir.
And subsequent to your obtaining the divorce, can you tell the court whether or not he remarried?
Yes, he did.
Was the person that he remarried the same person mentioned in your adultery case?
Yes, sir.
And to your knowledge, do he and his present wife continue to reside together as man and wife?
As far as I know,
Were you aware that she had children by a prior marriage?
yes, sir.
And were you aware of the fact that he is supporting and educating those children?
Yes,
Now you understand that he has brought this action to eliminate from the former order of the court the 18-year-old child who is deceased, having died in an automobile collision. You understand that?
yes, sir.
And also, he is asking the court to eliminate the support for the 18-year-old child. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Is there any issue that you had one child who died as a result of injuries received in an automobile accident?
Is there an issue? No, that did happen.
That did happen. That is factual. Is there an issue about whether or not he ought to be relieved from the duty and obligation to support Robert Philip Mason, who is 18 years old?
I don't agree with that.
Mrs. Mason, when did Robert Philip Mason become 18 years of age?
December the 10th of last year, 1976.
At the time he became 18 years of age, what was he doing?
He was attending Greenview High School.
And what grade was he in at Greenview High School?
He was a senior.
Did he graduate in the normal course from Greenville High School?
Yes, sir.
And he graduated in May or June of 1977.
June the 3rd.
What is Robert Philip Mason now doing here in September of 1977?
He is a freshman at the University of Southern Illinois.
Has his tuition for at least the first semester been paid?
Yes, sir.
Will you tell the court who paid the tuition?
Philip and I did.
Will you tell the court what amount the tuition was that you paid?
It's been about $1,900, including his books, the textbooks.
And are you making available to him any subsistence allowance while he is at school?
I'm trying to give him $20 a week, which is not enough, but he's going to have to do it. He's used to it.
And tell me this, Mrs. Mason, does that son have any physical impairment or problems?
Yes, sir. He has since the spring of 1968.
And what is the general nature of his problems?
He has grand mal epilepsy.
Is the condition which he has, is it disabling to any degree?
Only to the extent that he has seizures from time to time.
Has he been treated by Dr. Phillips' group here in Greenview?
Yes, sir. And by Dr. Elsie.
And is he taking a prescriptive drug for the control of this condition?
Yes.
And this is a letter from the children's clinic, Dr. McLean, regarding his condition.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Mason, can you give us the approximate cost per year for the prescriptive drugs necessary to be taken by this son and the approximate cost of his medical attention on a yearly basis?
For Philip,
Can you give us an approximation?
I think his drugs are about $15 a month just for the seizure control. He has asthma too and has to take medication for that, which varies with the season of the year. His medical bills are between $300 and $400 a year, just his, not dental.
And who has been paying the medical bills for this son?
I have.
And have you been paying those medical bills out of the allowance allowed to you by the order of this court?
Yes, sir.
And I'll ask you whether or not, since 1969, there has been any increase in the cost of living in supporting these children.
Yes, sir. There certainly has.
Can you give us an estimation of the percentage-wise of the increase in the cost of living during the last 8 years?
Well, the cost of living increase, and as the children grow, things for them cost more. It's more than doubled.
More than doubled. In connection with the other child of the marriage, will you tell the court what her age is and what she is now doing?
She's 15 and she's attending school, high school.
Is she living with you?
Yes, sir.
Does she have any medical problems or dental problems at this time which require treatment?
She has a dental problem that has required treatment for several years, and I haven't been able to do it. My son Wade was having orthodontic work done at the time of his death, and I couldn't do both of them at the same time.
And she being the youngest child, you were biding your time with her.
Yes, sir.
I will ask you whether or not she is being seen by Dr. Irvin Warren in Elgin.
Yes, sir.
Is he an orthodontist?
Yes, he is.
Is this a report from him, signed by him, indicating what her condition is and what is required to do the work that is required?
Yes, it is.
Mrs. Mason, are there any outstanding medical bills owed for the treatment of either of these two children at this time?
Yes, there are.
I hand you these objects, and would you tell the court what they represent and what they are?
They are dental bills. I had a running account with Dr. Atkinson, which I'm paying off at $40 a month.
And those dental bills are for service performed for whom?
For Philip and Elizabeth and for Wade.
All right, this will be a little more practice at 130 words per minute, beginning with a question for the record. Sherry, what is your full name?
Sherry Lynn Harvin.
Now, Sherry, are you nervous today a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Well, just calm down now. We want you to testify as best you can.
Yes, sir.
Sherry, how old are you?
13.
All right. Now, who is your father?
Robert Dean Harvin, Sr.
What about your mother?
Sandra K. Harvin.
Now, do you go to school?
Yes, sir.
Which school do you go to?
Lauren Road Middle School.
Sherry, you understand what this proceeding is about today, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you understand the difference between right and wrong?
Yes, sir.
You know what lying means?
Yes, sir.
You know what telling the truth means?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now you know that when you take the oath here today, that you are supposed to tell the truth,
Yes, sir.
nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me call your attention, Sherry, if I could, to the evening of July 21, 1974. That was summer about 2 years ago. You remember that night?
Yes, sir.
I want you to tell us as best you can in your own words. I want you to tell the truth. And if there is something that you don't know, don't try to answer it. Tell the jury what happened on that evening.
Well, all of us kids were out there in the van. We got the van and
Well, wait a minute now, Sherry. Wait a minute now. Where was this that you were at that time?
Central City Auto Auction.
And you say all the children. Who do you mean by that, Sherry?
My sister Paula Harvin and my brother Brent Harvin and Farron Harvin and Darren Harvin.
And what was happening?
We got out of the van. We started running up and down the things, playing and all.
Now, where was the van?
It was at the Central City Auction, parked on the side.
All right. Is there a fence out there?
Yes, sir.
Was the van inside the fence or outside the fence?
Inside the fence.
Inside the fence. And you say you all were playing around?
Yes, sir.
Was that inside the fence or outside the fence?
Inside the fence.
And what were you doing? What kind of playing were you doing?
Well, chasing each other, and we were racing up and down the driveway.